Alright, finding the equation of the graphs in terms of sine and cosine. I've tried to zoom in as far as I can so you can kind of see this. But let's do the parts that are the same. We'll do them at the same time. Y equals and y equals, since it requires both sine and cosine. First thing that is the same, the amplitude. That's the number that goes in front of the word sine and in front of cosine. The number that goes in front of both of those is the distance from the top of the graph, which is 3, to the bottom of the graph, that distance, which is -7. So our total distance here is 10. Half of that goes in the front here. 5 and 5. That is always the same for both. I'm going to leave some room. I'm going to go to the next part that you should be able to do. That's the up or down shift. Now the up or down shift is there because if the amplitude is 5, then the top would have been 5 and the bottom would have been -5. But those aren't the top and bottom. Both those numbers, 5 has been moved down to 3. -5 has been moved down to -7, which means both have been moved down 2. So -2 concludes both of them. The b value comes from the formula p times b is equal to 2 pi. This is your conversion from your parent graph, which has a normal length of one cycle, to be 2 pi. We are going to convert that. Now we need the b value. In order to solve for the b value, we would need the p. The p is the period, and the period is the length of one cycle in the original graph. The length of one cycle in the original graph can be found in many places. You can go the distance from the top to the top, bottom to the bottom, which we can't even see, or middle to middle. They're all the same length. It doesn't matter where you find them. So I provided a dotted line here because it's the middle that is the pretty location. These tops, that guy there and that guy there, are not necessarily pretty. So I didn't want you to guess at what those might be, so I've provided this dotted line for a visual aid for you. If you'll notice, this location right here says -1.75, which I'll write -7/4. That cycle goes up, back down, through the middle again, down to here, and finishes here at +3/4. We need to find the distance between these two dots. Do not just add these two values together. That's not how you find the distance between them. One way to do it is this. Ask yourself, what is the distance from this dot back to 0? Well, that distance is 7/4. What is the distance from 0 to 3/4? That distance is 3/4. So this total distance is 7/4 plus 3/4, which is 10/4. So to write the b, we have to do 2 pi divided by the p. The p, the period, we just found to be 10/4. So 2 pi divided by 10/4 pi. That's what we'll tidy up and stick in this location. Multiply by the reciprocal, the pi's fall out, you end up with 8/10, which simplifies to 4/5. So both b values are the same. Last thing we have to do is the left to right shift. Sine graphs start in the middle, so our choices are this dot, this one, and this one. Those are the 4 that we can see. Choosing this dot here or this dot here would keep this 5 positive, because if this is your dot 1 and dot 2 is up here, which is what normally sine does, then we keep the 5 positive. If you want to pick this dot to be your dot 1, then this 5 is now negative because your dot 2 would be down here. So, for no good reason, I'm going to write that guy. X plus, because all left to right shifts are opposite of this sign. 7/4, do not forget to write your pi in there. 7/4 pi. And I'm going to keep my 5 positive by choosing that one. Next, I need cosine. Cosine is a top. Well, I have 2 choices to find. I can either find that dot or this dot, or a bottom. If you pick a bottom, then this 5 has to be negative. If you pick a top, the 5 stays positive. So what I'm going to do right now is do some averaging, because everything is symmetrical here. Here are the 2 dots that I know. If I were to average those 2 dots, I would get this dot here. And to average, you need to add and divide by 2. Well, if I add negative 7/4 to 3/4, I get negative 4/4. And negative 4/4 is negative 1. Negative 1 divided by 2 is negative 1/2. That's this location here, negative 1/2. Now, these two dots can be averaged. If you average them, you'll get the x value here. And the x value here is this dot's x value, the one that we need. So we need to average these two numbers here. So to average them, we add them. So first I change negative 1/2 to negative 2/4 so that they have the same denominators. If you add these together, you would get negative 9/4. Negative 9/4 divided by 2 is what needs to be done now to get that guy. If you don't have a calculator, dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So negative 9/4 times 1/2 is negative 9/8. That is that dot's x value, which goes here. It's x plus 9 pi over 8. And there's your sample. Okay. As best you can, and you may need to pause this for a long period of time. That's really tough to see. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. And that's really not focused very well.
Or at least don't tell you they went to the doctor. No, I know. Well, but okay, so
well, unfortunately, that's the best we're going to get. So, for what you can't see, this is positive 5 at the top. This is negative 11 down at the bottom. And your pretty locations, I'll give those to you. This is a pretty location. It's negative 7/4. And this is a pretty location, 3/2. Okay, as best you can, find the equation of that in terms of sine and cosine. Press pause if you need more time. Otherwise, here is some solutions. So I've provided a couple answers because sine, which starts in the middle, you could choose this dot here or this dot here. Choosing this dot keeps your graph positive. Choosing this dot makes that 8 negative. So either one of these is correct for sine. Cosine, I picked a couple. I picked this top guy, which I had to do some averaging to keep the 8 positive, and I wrote the one over here, which you could have chosen this 3/2 also, and makes that 8 negative. Okay, here is a third one for you to try. So, points that are hard to see. Now you can see the dotted line is the pretty. So this guy here is negative 7/4, and this dot right here is 5/2. If you can't see it, the top of this graph is at 14, and the bottom is at negative 8. All right, press pause if you need more time. Otherwise, here's the solution. There are several again. And hopefully you have chosen one of those. There were a couple that I've left out, which could be correct.